Sounds rolling.
Oh God, everyone focus!
What do you want from me? Why do you care for me? Why do you know?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Sony just released a series of deleted scenes from the Madam Web movie featuring Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man and another totally different, spectacular Spider-Man. The plans they had for this movie were bonkers. They were all over the place. All these different versions of Spider-Man at different stages of development, including Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, who was supposed to be in the movie at one point. So we'll break it all down. It's almost unbelievable when you think about what they were trying to do with this movie and how it seems like Marvel, the other people inside Sony, shut them down at different stages. Because some of these deleted scenes are dated as recently as June of last year. So they really came down to the wire on which version of Spider-Man was supposed to be in this movie. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I am sure it will get crazier. We have Tom Holland's Spider-Man that's supposed to film later this year. It's supposed to feature Daredevil, Kingpin, more street-level Spider-Man villains, like Scorpion, for instance. I've already done a few videos about that, and we just got some Daredevil Born Again Punisher footage setting all that stuff up, so I'll have links for that at the end of this. I know everybody out there would love to see Spider-Man interact with John Bernthal's Punisher at some point, if Spider-Man 4 is going to be a street-level movie. But you may have seen some of these Madam Web, Tom Holland deleted scenes recently. They definitely raise more questions than they answer, like what is going on here? The first two deleted scenes seem like they're from what would have been one of the Flash 4, like the timeline battles that take place, because the movie jumps around in the timeline a lot. Both of them feature Tom Holland's Spider-Man in one of his older Spider-Man suits fighting Ezekiel Sims. The first one here features the two of them falling through the air above the New York City skyline at night. Here's the thing, notice that Tom Holland is wearing his old Steve Ditko-looking Spider-Man suit, they call it the advanced suit, from Spider-Man Far From Home. You can tell from the smaller Spider-Man symbol on his chest, the new suit is like a total redesign, making it more like the traditional Spider-Man red and blue he got back at the beginning of the Amazing Spider-Man run. Combined with aspects of Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man suits, including his new larger Spider-Man symbol, the new suit also has way less Stark tech baked into it. They haven't revealed what they're going to be calling that behind the scenes because they give actual names to each of the different suits, but you can think of it as a more ground-level Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man suit. They called the Stark Tech suit the Advanced suit, and the Iron Spider, obviously the Iron Spider because that's what it's called in the comics. That last suit during Spider-Man No Way Home was just a combination of the Advanced suit with some of the Iron Spider nanites, and he took the pieces of that and used them to make the brand new suit. Him wearing the older Advanced suit during this raises a lot of questions like, how was Sony going to explain the timeline on this? When was the scene meant to happen? Where in the multiverse was the scene meant to happen? Because I don't think this scene was meant to be happening inside the MCU, even in the Tom Holland version of the Madam Web movie, like when he was actually in the movie. Originally, the movie was meant to take place inside the Venom universe. Now, they changed a lot of plans at the last minute. The producers, when they were giving interviews, were like, we decided to make this a standalone, when clearly that is not the case. Clearly it was meant to be a big multiverse movie. Originally, it was part of a larger plan. Sony had to, I won't say steal the Tom Holland Spider-Man from Marvel, more like hijack him and backdoor all the Venom universe movies, like all these Spider-Man spin-off movies, Morbius, Madam Web, into the larger MCU. Like a bigger version of the Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scene with Venom if Tom Holland had shown up in that scene with Tom Hardy. Here's where I think this Tom Holland scene was meant to take place in the timeline. The Madam Web movie was meant to be a combination of Terminator and Final Destination with Spider-Man characters. Ezekiel Sims was originally meant to be more of a Terminator-like character in his use of time travel tropes. In the final version of the movie, the way they explained this was that he would have visions of potential futures through the web of life and destiny from the comics. He was perceiving timelines the way that Madam Web perceives timelines. This was the way they visualized the actual web of life and destiny in the movie. They talked more about it during Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's just a way of visualizing the multiverse. That's why it looks just like Loki's multiverse tree of timelines.
This is all of us, all of our lives woven together in a beautiful web of life and destiny.
The spider bite gave Ezekiel Sims and Madam Web through her mother, tangentially, the ability to see those possible futures through the web of life and destiny. One of the major changes they made during the filming of the movie was to delete all these Spider-Man references, all these scenes, including the Tom Holland stuff. And it sounds like when Ezekiel Sims was perceiving his possible futures, like he was having the flash forwards, the nightmares, he was also meant to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man in this scene fighting and killing him. And there was meant to be a completely different plot with Emma Roberts' version of Mary Parker, Peter Parker's mother. It would have been Tom Holland that she was pregnant with, and Ezekiel Sims was going to try and kill her along with the other versions of Spider-Woman in Madam Web. Like, Spider-Man is destined to kill me, I must kill him before he's born kind of thing. Very Terminator, Skynet, John Connors kind of vibe. In the other deleted scene, it looks like the fight was meant to happen on top of the skyscraper here, this building where he was supposed to live in the future, where all those flash forwards were happening. Also where the versions of Spider-Woman killed him. Even though they're not depicted in these scenes with Tom Holland, they were also probably meant to be inside this building when this fight was going down. The main part of the movie was meant to take place in the early 2000s, before Spider-Man was born. His mother, Mary Parker, played by Emma Roberts, gives birth to him at the end of the movie, helped by Uncle Ben, played by Adam Scott. The other theory here, too, is that at some point, Tom Holland was meant to be transported to the Venom universe. Same way they did with the Vulture because of the spells during Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, Sony would have backdoor explained him winding up in this universe because of that spell. Clearly that would have not made sense, but that hasn't stopped Sony before. Like, look at the Morbius trailer with all the Spider-Man references they use. You have this weird mishmash of Tom Holland Spider-Man Easter eggs mixed with Andrew Garfield Spider-Man Easter eggs and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Easter eggs. Like, they're kind of confusing all these different versions. One of them is even an Easter egg from a Tobey Maguire suit from a video game, not from the movies. So it sounds like a lot of these Spider-Man ideas that Sony had were them just throwing stuff at a wall and not really bothering to explain the logic of it. Like, if we put Spider-Man in it, who cares if it makes sense? That sounds exactly like the way a Hollywood producer would think. The even crazier theory, and I actually think that this makes a little more sense, but it's still totally crazy, is that Sony was trying to say that this baby that's born at the end of the movie just grows up to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Like, the movie itself was meant to be a prequel to his movie at one point. It was also meant to be a prequel to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man at one point too, but they completely botched the way the timeline works out. Like, it's not right for Tom Holland's Spider-Man because he's born a little bit later in the timeline, and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is born much earlier in the timeline. Just another example of Sony messing stuff up. But I think one of their final plans was trying to make Tom Holland the main Spider-Man of the Sony spin-off movies, like in that Venom universe, without totally explaining whether or not it was the same version as the MCU Spider-Man, or they were banking on Marvel losing the rights to use Spider-Man. You'd have just seen Tom Holland show up, have his adventure, defeat Ezekiel Sims in the future, and then watch him be born at the end of the movie. In future sequels, had the movie gotten sequels, it definitely won't now though. Would have just taken place forward in the timeline with Madam Web interacting with Venom, the other main characters of that universe, other big crossovers, because she's such a big multiverse character. And because I think Sony thought that they would have backdoored Tom Holland into that universe, they would have planned to put him in those future spin-off movies. Personally, I think that would have been terrible for the character. Like, you don't want to see Tom Holland in like 20 different mediocre Spider-Man movies. But I think they were trying to find a way to legitimize their Venom spin-off movies. Like, the Venom movies have earned some money, but not all those spin-off movies have been gangbusters exactly. Like, a lot of them have been tanking lately. Sony has the Kraven movie coming up, they have Venom 3 coming up, so I think they were getting afraid and they were like, we need more Spider-Man in these movies. Here's the thing though, inside Sony, it seems like they can't even agree amongst themselves about how to use Spider-Man just in general. Originally, Madam Web started out as a prequel to the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movies. Apparently he said no to that pretty early on, at which point they pivoted to making it a prequel to Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man, and at some point, Marvel and Sony signed their sharing deal for more MCU Spider-Man movies, keeping him in the MCU. Kevin Feige and the people at Sony who just work on the Tom Holland main Spider-Man movies won the battle at Sony over how Madam Web was going to go down, and they got rid of all the Spider-Man stuff in the film. If it wasn't clear, just because Sony makes all these Spider-Man spin-off movies like Venom, Morbius, Kraven coming up soon, Madam Web, the Spider-Verse movies, which are all fantastic, like how do you make the Spider-Verse movies so good and all the other movies be so weird? There's totally different teams working on all those movies, which explains why some of them can be really good and some of them can be really bad. There's no one single Kevin Feige person inside Sony that orchestrates everything and calls all the shots. Like, Tom Rothman is the president of the studio, but Amy Pascal is really like the main Spider-Man producer on the bigger Tom Holland Spider-Man stuff, the Spider-Verse stuff. And all of the people that were making the Madam Web movie had absolutely no connection with any of those other people. Here's where we get to the spectacular Spider-Man deleted scenes, like this other weird new Spider-Man that it seems like Sony was coming up with. This is probably when they realized they weren't going to get Andrew Garfield Spider-Man or Tom Holland Spider-Man. They pivoted to like a totally new, spectacular Spider-Man. Notice that the Spider-Man suit is totally different, the symbol is totally different. And the person working on this version is Ryan Meerding. He's the head of visual development at Marvel Studios, meaning he's a core MCU person who works on all of the MCU movies. He was making this new Spider-Man for Sony, so there's a little collaboration between Marvel and Sony when they were making the Madam Web movie. They didn't say who was going to play this spectacular Spider-Man, but here's the thing. Like, if you look at the date on the photo here, it's July of 2023. That's relatively recently. It sounds like they might have come up with this spectacular Spider-Man because the people at Marvel were trying to convince Sony not to try and use Tom Holland. Like, no, don't use him. Use another Spider-Man. This other new Spider-Man might have been a contingency plan that they all came up with just based on the way negotiations go between Marvel and Sony for more MCU Spider-Man movies. You just have to picture all the lawyers at Sony arguing with all the lawyers at Marvel and all of the creatives about which Spider-Man they're going to be using in all these Venom spin-off movies. As it stands right now, they're getting ready to film Spider-Man 4 at the end of the year. Like I said, it sounds like it will be a more ground-level movie with Daredevil, Kingpin being one of the villains, not the main villain, but in the background, probably putting together a version of the MCU Sinister Six. For a little while, it seemed like Sony and Marvel were playing a tug-of-war over what Spider-Man 4 was actually going to be. We'll probably learn more about what's actually going on with Spider-Man 4 by the end of the year. Of course, I'll do more videos as we get more details. But if you have any questions or video requests, post them in the comments below. And let me know what you think of all these Madam Web Spider-Man deleted scenes. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. We're in the middle of X-Men 97 episodes. We just got a bunch of big Fantastic Four news. I just did videos for all that. Click here for that new Fantastic Four teaser, and click here for all my X-Men episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.